about was Ricky called me up one time a few weeks ago, and he said he wanted to do a class on dust collection. And I said, okay. Then we found out he wanted to do a class on something totally different than what we did. And it turned out, I said, well, I can do a class on how the dust collection is hooked up to all the individual tools, not on the machines or anything like that. So it ended up, instead of giving him the suggestions, I ended up standing up in front of here. So we had Bob and Jim Myrick come by the house, and we recorded, some video of different things in my shop and how the dust collection, and we're really looking at just not the fact that it's picking up and getting rid of it. It was really for the idea of your breathing. We've had different things that we've done. We're all inhaling the sawdust, and I'm not terrible about it, but majority of stuff that I do, I don't wear a dust mask. And when you're doing some of those things, we actually did close-up pictures of the different stuff, and you start looking at the dust floating away. And at that point, you see how much you're doing. And the stuff that you're floating away, and Jim's going to explain, that's not what's hurting you. If it falls to the ground and you see these big pieces, it's the little ones that are in with that you're breathing in that you can't filter out. And Jim will talk about that later. So anyway, the whole class is going to be on mainly what you can do to protect yourself, using the dust collection. But a lot of it's stuff we wanted to put on there was something that where people come up with ideas of how they do it at their shop, that they've adapted, ways that they put boxes on things to pick up dust or whatever else on there, and then really something other than what comes with the tool. If you go to a bandsaw, you got to pour it on there, you put holes in it. Well, everybody can do that, and that's normal. But I want to see the ideas. People come up with some great ideas. They send pictures, and we will be showing that along with the slideshow. So Bob is going to start the slideshow. Certain points we're going to stop and talk about why we went to a certain point, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, to begin with, we posed the question of, you've got a dust collector, how come my shop is still dusty? There's a whole host of reasons for that we'll be getting to get into and cover. So what we're going to suggest is, what do you do? Some examples of some of the worst offenders is the scroll saw, the lathe, and the drill press. Most of those machines, you'll if you think about it a little bit, you'll realize that they, for the most part, they don't have any provision for dust collection. Scroll saws, aside from the small dust collector port that you see on this jet up here, they don't have any dust collection at all. And I didn't think that was such a big deal till I was at one of the woodworking shows and so forth, cutting corian, and I was sitting up there for 2 or 3 days, cutting this piece of corian and so forth. And I think at the end of the second day, I started realizing, gee, I'm having a nosebleed, because this corian dust was going up in my nose, and had actually, cut skin inside the nose enough to cause a nosebleed. So I decided, all right, we've got to do something about this. So I just put a small fan up there to blow dust away from me.
Okay, before we go to the next part of there, I think as far as our breathing, if you're a scroller, I think that's the most harmful thing that's hit me in the shop. I was scrolling, I was working out of my garage before I had the shop built, and I'm sitting there, and for about 3 or 4 days, my eyes are burning, my throat is hurting, I can't, I couldn't swallow right and everything. And I was cutting a lot of oak, and oak has got an acid in it. And I'm sitting, you're only sitting this far from, what you're cutting. And I didn't know it was that bad, so I had turned the light on afterward, and I could see all this stuff floating around inside there, as you see the light. We're going to show some of that when we show the slide coming up. So I went out and I bought a mask, this little toy. And I was wearing this. This works really good, but I still get it in my eyes. So when you're putting the glasses on, the glasses do not fit good around here, unless you could get something that paired up between the two, which I really couldn't find anything like this where you put the glasses on where it's sealed. So you still get a little bit on there, but it helped me a whole lot. So I had to do a bunch of trivets and a lot of little plaques and stuff out of oak, and it was really bothering me pretty bad. So after a while, I got a fan from where I was working at, and that's going to be in the video, but it pulls it. It has 2 little square cages that pulls it out. So I was using that for a while, And then I noticed after a few days, I no longer had anything in my mask, or nothing on the glasses and everything. It was doing 100% of getting everything out of there. And if you don't put the light on it, you could not see the stuff floating around. And it made a great difference in, you know, the acid that was on there was something you couldn't wash out, like you get sawdust in your eyes. It was actually burning into my eyes, and it'd be there for 4 or 5 days. No matter how many drops I put on, it didn't do any good. So anyway, that's why we got into this, and he's going to show that on the video.
Okay, there's going to be throughout the rest of the slideshow for the morning, there's going to be about 7 different videos in there where we're going to try to stress through lighting and so forth. You will see airborne dust in there. That's just a small indication of what's floating around in there. What you don't see are the smaller particles that won't even show up under the light. But if you see these smaller particles that are floating around, kind of looking like a fog or smoke or something like that, that'll be an indication of what's airborne. There's probably 10 times that much in probably 4 micron particles or less that's going to do the damage to your body. We'll start with the scroll saw here, and then there'll be question and answer type stuff afterwards. Yep, you're right.
Now, see, I can smell it in my nose right now.
And that is the piece of equipment that Rob was talking about that works effectively for his shop.
See, that's without even putting this out.
These shots that you're seeing here are without the squirrel cage fan. Okay, the fan that the camera was showing there in this particular case was a surplus piece of gear from a 19-inch electronics rack, common industrial type thing. Rob stuck a filter on the front of it to accomplish his filtration goal. You can make an equivalent from some of these 120 millimeter computer case fans. You can get them over at Fry's, or you can order them over the internet or something like that. But about 4 of them would fit together nicely on a piece of 1/8 Baltic birch. Punch big holes in there and screw them to the Baltic birch, and then make a box around it that would draw air across in a similar fashion to the box that was shown. As I was researching this, I found a lot of other solutions for shop-made dust collectors and fans and so forth on lumberjacks. So if you're looking for a resource there, you could look to that. Sitting down here on the floor is an example of a shop-made fan that Jack provided for us. You should turn that so the camera can catch it.
Yep. There's a filter on the back here.
So you would want to position that so you're drawing air across the filter. Put that adjacent to wherever you're working. A good application for that would be sanding or something like that. So if you're sanding on a bench top, you can put that next to it to kind of draw the air that escapes whatever the dust collection that you got on the sander.
The key is, after turning that one thing and sanding it, the filter's red. And I didn't think there'd be any dust getting into the fan at all. So it was it's red from just the air was picking up that was around where I was. Another use for it was my son was sanding a tabletop, and so we had the table, we put it next to an open window in the garage. One fan drawing air out and throwing it out the window, and the other fan blowing air across where he was sanding, and that was the filter there. So it made a big difference for breathing. I'm embarrassed about the craftsmanship, but that was just meant to be quick and dirty and put it together and have something that helped me breathe.
I said some of your work, I'm kind of impressed with that.
Yeah.
And for my work, yeah, that is some of my best, unfortunately.
There's a joke among mechanical engineers that a 95% filter that you can buy for a large system as well as in the big box stores for your home. They're good at filtering birds and elephants only. That's about as good as they are.
Do they work for politicians?
The nickname is calling them a rock catcher.
Rock
They'll
yes.
catch the rocks. But you really want to get up, for what we're doing, you want to be up in the MERV 10, 11, something along that line.
Okay, one of the things that Jack kind of passed over lightly that I'd like to go back to, he mentioned that the species of wood there, yeah, Paduke. Some of these exotics like Paduke and Cocobolo are carcinogens, the dust coming off of them, and a lot of people are extremely allergic to these things. I know one of the worst cases of that was Don Bedell was making some gavels like this out of Cocobolo, and he was, thank goodness, he was wearing the full dust protection, the hood, the whole works, except his forearms were exposed. His forearms just turned as red as my shirt. And the doctors told him that he was allergic to this stuff. It was a good thing he had the mask on, otherwise he would have been dead. Because that stuff would get in his lungs and they wouldn't be able to treat it.
When Don started though, he made these gavels and stuff for 2 or 3 years and it never affected him. So he went for a long time and these allergies all of a sudden hit him. It was something he was exposed to all the time, and after that, if he just rubs it against his arm, he probably grows out in hives and stuff like that. So, you know, the fact that you're not affected by it now, I'm not affected by Cocobolo. I've turned about 8 pins of that this week. But, you know, it's something you watch. If all of a sudden you see something changing, then start taking more attention to it.
The OSHA website states that Western red cedar can actually cause asthma. It doesn't just exacerbate asthma that's already there, but it can cause it, so be very careful with that.
Okay, let's move on to the next tool here, which is Lathe. I know there's a fair number of turners in the audience here that they've probably dealt with the dust collection and just kind of, for the most part, given up and let the floor be the dust collector. So we're gonna show a video here of what typically happens when you start, you know, turning a piece of wood round. Okay, your best dust collector is not going to be able to pick up chips like that. So that's why I made the statement that your dust collector is the floor in this case. So once it's round, Rob is going to move into, we've now turned the dust collector on. You notice a few chips that are going in the dust collector, but the chips are of such a mass that they can't be picked up by the airstream, even at 1800 CFM.
Chips you see there are not the ones that are hurting you. So those things dropping to the floor, no matter what you put in the back of there, I mean, that's going about this far from it. It's a 5 horsepower suction going on there. But look at the dust here. This is where it bothers you.
Okay, the stuff that is particularly heinous with a turning is the sanding operation. You'll see where he just knocked the sandpaper off there and created a cloud of dust. Now he's going to duplicate the same thing when we turn the dust collector on.
I'm gonna put this on here. It's almost works there. Instead of coming on me.
You know, all he did in this case was reverse the direction of the lathe, and that makes a big difference on the dust in your face. You know, the dust that you see coming off there, you see quite a, the airstream is able to pick that up. You know, that's the stuff that is visible, which is going to be, 20 microns or better.
Doing the sanding, I put it in reverse, and then I put the sandpaper on the top. That is gonna put it towards that area there. That dust collector was pulling it, when I put it on the bottom or the top when the dust collector's on it, all that fine sawdust was going there anyway. So it helps on there, but if you don't have anything like that, if you put it in reverse and you put your sandpaper on the top, it's gonna start pushing it that way. If you do it normally, you hold it there, you're throwing it right on you. So if you can put your lathe in reverse when you're sanding something like that, put it back there so it takes it away from you. Part of what we want to talk about on here is what you're wearing for a mask. When I was doing that, I was wearing this. I have no big chunks coming. This keeps most of it out of there. I'm not breathing it, so it works really good. And so you want to wear a mask for whichever one's going to work for you. This I have not worn since I got done with that because it doesn't do anything for me. And like I said, with the goggles on, they didn't meet up together. So I've gone to these ones like this. The trend itself, I've had this for a long time. This is the first one I got. And both of them have different benefits. This is great because you can just put it on. It's battery operated, it comes through the filters and it works really good. But the filter stuff is right in front. It'll get rid of all the sawdust and everything. The only thing it would not work is if you're doing spalted wood that you have the mold spores, something like that. You're still going to get that in on using it on there. But it will get rid of all the particles out there. You're breathing nothing but fresh air. And it's not heavy. It works really good. They do sell that here. And this is an older version of it.
Table,
like this one? Okay. This is an older version of it. There's a battery on each side. I charge up both, but one set of batteries will run for an hour or so by itself. We put the two on, I'll get a full day's worth of use out of it. The first one I bought was this one by Triton, which to me had too much stuff built into it. You have ear protection on here. You have a hood that goes on. You put the whole thing over your head. You can open up a flap here to talk, but the biggest advantage of it, whatever you're doing, this is where your air filter comes from. You turn it on, it comes through your mask, and this is strapped in back of you. So instead of anything that's here, sawdust or the mold spores we're talking about, it's not even going to get on it, so it's in back of you, so it's inside of there. So this is a nice system. I felt like I should take all the ear protection and stuff off and all that stuff because I didn't need all that, but it does have a lot of options to it.
One advantage that the Triton has over the Trend is the Triton mask is much more impact resistant than the Trend has. The Trend mask is much more thin, fragile.
The Trend mask has got an extra piece of plastic that goes over it to keep from getting liquid stuff on it and dries on CA glue or something like that, but it doesn't do anything. This one has got marks right on the front from the first day I used it. I was thrilled. I mean, I hadn't been wearing anything like this. I've been wearing the thinner ones, and I had a piece of bark come off that was about 3 inches by 3 inches and hit the mask right straight in the face there and put marks on there. And I'm just thinking, I would have been bleeding all over the place if I didn't have that on. I was so happy to have it. That paid for itself that one day. So, okay, Bob.
Okay, we touched on the fact that the sanding dust is particularly problematic to your respiratory system. Jim's going to talk to that later after we get done with the rest of the dust generators. And Rob just got done talking about the face shields and so forth. What Rob didn't cover there was that that big gulp dust hood that we saw there. It's available out here in the store for $23. And what we did is made a couple of brackets on there to be able to attach it to a Samson stage speaker stand, which is the same thing that is underneath that table over here. It's a inexpensive, I say inexpensive, you know, you can get them for $30 or $40. They're multi-purpose. I bought a couple of them for my shop. Rob saw them and liked them. I think we wound up getting about 5 of them for his shop for various, holding up various things. They make a good painting turntable. They hold the big gulp, and we use them here in the classroom for holding that tabletop. But at any rate, you can get those at J&R Music, B&H Photo, or Amazon. I think J&R Music is the one that typically will have it for the cheapest, and they run sales on that pretty often. As we talk about drill presses, you know, there's an intermediate place for the chips to collect. It's called the tabletop. So that winds up being your initial dust collector on a drill press. But in Rob's shop, we've got a bit of a solution that he likes there, and we'll get into that. Kind of hard to get a cross flow of any type developed for a drill press, especially when you're using a fixture like that pin mandrel fixture. So what we did in that case is use an inexpensive stage microphone stand with the gooseneck on the top. After he gets done drilling here, we'll show you what he does with it. The microphone stand makes a good holder for that hose so that it's readily accessible.
And then you just press on what you're doing. Now the dust and stuff on here is not gonna hurt you. You know, you're far enough away, it's gonna be hitting the ground, it's bigger chips, you know, so it's not as far as health, but it does clean up. The thing is, when you're trying to drill, you got all this stuff in your way, it starts packing down. So instead of stopping and sweeping it off and getting another thing on there, having that on there was really convenient just to hit the button.
Talking about sourcing of some of the stuff that we saw in the video, I get those microphone stands at Guitar Center. They're the cheapest place that I've found. I recommend the ones with the heavy bass, because they will be, yeah, and we use some of them in the classroom here for these monitors. But having the heavy base on there, those things stay put, and you could put something that's got a substantial moment arm off the top of the stand, and it'll still remain upright, as opposed to the microphone stands that you'll see a lot of musicians use that have a little tripod on there. It doesn't take anything at all to knock those things over.
There are commercial fences that are used, that you can use for your table, for your drill press, and I have one. If you're getting up close to that, it's fine, but if you have a board that's like 3 inches wide against your fence, it's gonna drop down, and it's not gonna be picking up much. You know, they do have a vacuum that hooks right up to there. So if you did most of your work right by the fence, that'll work, but it wasn't working for most things that I use it for.
All right, we'll move on to the next offender here. We've got some machines that have some type of built-in dust collection, strictly because the manufacturer got pressured into it to do something that they call dust collection. But when it doesn't work so good, you start thinking about, okay, what do I do? One of them is the miter saw. Most of us will just take the miter saw without any kind of a dust collection hookup and just proceed to start chopping wood. And the dust just goes everywhere. I was somewhat amazed when we did this video as to how well some of these dust collector ports in some of the later model machines actually work. The two examples, one of which we did video of was the DeWalt dust collector, but I know the Bosch unit, which I've got in my shop, they won some kind of awards for how well the dust does get collected on those, and it is a better than average dust collector when you hook it up to a shop vac or something like that. So we'll see some of the effects of various types of dust collection that you can use on these machines. And first up is the DeWalt without any kind of dust collection. You'll see a little puff of dust go out the back there.
A lot depends on what you're cutting. That's a solid piece of wood. You don't see as much come back.
When you see this piece of plywood, the dust coming off of that's pretty incredible.
So it's got like a track that goes on there where it comes through and comes right out that spout in the back perfect.
Yeah, and when all else fails, you resort to dust collection the old way.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, here we have a shop vac hooked up. That dust that was spewing off the back of that piece of plywood is now virtually non-existent.
It's very efficient like that because if you look at the table, there was hardly anything on the front. It picks it up right alongside the blade. You have a shroud going around, and it's picking up straight through there. So it gets almost about 90% of it comes picked up there. So it works really good. Now, the only thing that we ran into a problem with on there was I have a small vacuum hooked to it for dust collection. It fills up a lot. You see the stream that's out there. So if you got one of these little 1 gallon, I think I have like a 1.5 gallon unit, for that on there, it wouldn't take long to fill it up. And if you're doing a lot of plywood, a lot of cuts on it, it comes by so fast you can actually jam up the tubes in your hose and stuff in there. That little vacuum did a fantastic job on that.
Okay, let's move on to the next solution for the chop saw. When you can't get the shop vac to work properly, you move it over to the big gulp. Oh, okay.
And then we have a lot of cuts, like 50, 100 cuts. You do take it over to the big gulp there and do it like that. And you have to sweep the floor afterward because it's not giving it as efficient as putting a regular dust collector on it.
Yeah, we were kind of talking to it during the video, but you would think that at 1800 CFM, pulling through that big gulp, that it would work better than what it does. But I was surprised at how much escape there was around it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Most all of us have a table saw in our shop, and we'll get into how effective the just the straight downdraft dust collection is on a table saw, and then also cover the overarm dust collection and what the difference is on that. first two cuts were without dust collection. This begins the sequence of the table saw with dust collection. You'll see the particulates that were landing on top of the piece of wood that was cut. Most of those were eliminated. Now, one of the things that we talked about on there is that the overarm dust collection works great when you're making a through cut. If you're making a stopped cut for whatever reason, or where the blade doesn't come completely through the board, as a lot of people do, these things don't work so good.
You can't do it like that with a rapid cut or anything like that. The only part we had trouble with using that on there, it's great when you use a big piece of plywood because by the time you're done, it doesn't leave much. It's really efficient. But if you got a small board, you cannot get in between the overhead part there and the fence to control what to put over there. So if you're doing something small, it doesn't work overhead. 90% of the time, I don't have it on there. You know, it works beautiful, but I have so many cuts I do on small pieces that it doesn't work for me. But the actual downdraft part works pretty good anyway. So it's not as good as what I would like for there though.
Okay, we'll move on to the next machine here, which is a router table. Most router tables are, built along the premise that there's a dust box of some type at the bottom that contains the dust. We'll look at the video on how effective that is. This particular one, I paid pretty careful attention to the finish on the inside of the box to try to make it as smooth as possible to help collect the particles and extract them. You'll notice on that door there that there's some holes on the bottom to act as a scavenger to sweep the bottom of the box. The inserts around the top there are intended to direct the chip toward the bottom of the machine. You'll notice without the dust collector on, you'll get a lot of particulates in the bottom of the machine. So when you turn the dust collector on, you'll get to see how well the scavenging effect is on those holes at the bottom of the cover. Doing is pushing around the stuff that is in the back corner that the airflow doesn't get them. Notice there that the tabletop is a lot cleaner.
If you have the dust collector on and the door shut when you're doing it, that box in there where you saw some of the stuff built up, there's hardly anything inside there. So you can run that thing for an hour cutting up different stuff. Look in the box, there's hardly anything there. It does pick it up right from the bottom. Put some, not as big of a scoop, but we have a scoop like we got from here that's about this big. And it's down low enough. The first one we had was a round hole, which he's going to show here. But that round hole is in there was up higher, and stuff that dropped below it wasn't picked up, so we cut a bigger hole and we set it down the bottom.
Some of the stuff that we've learned in the evolution of the dust collection on that router table is we've got a hose connected to the fence to draw air through the back of the bit. On the first few generations of router tables that I did, I took that and routed that hose over to the the cavity for the dust collection box. And we've since found out that that wasn't anywhere near as effective as it was to route that thing over to a T-connector in line with the hose. As soon as I saw how the, how much of an improvement it was, I realized that the, original designer of the type of router table that I was showing there was Norm Abrams. And when I saw that he did a T formation on the back of the thing, I thought, no, I don't know about that. I think he would lose some effectiveness. I think the old dude was smarter than I was in that regard, because his solution did work better. Okay, then I got a couple of bullet items there about the effectiveness of the downdraft. It does suck most of the dust to the bottom of the box. The backdraft cuts the material that is spun off of the bit, draws that through the fence, and then the stuff that actually does collect in the bottom of the box, the vent holes on the door, actually do a really effective job at scavenging the bottom of the dust collection box and directing that toward the port at the back of the machine. Now we move on to the thickness planer, which, rather than dust collection on here, we're doing chip collection, because it is a whole lot of big particles that come off of this machine.
Those things also produce dust.
Yep. More chips than anything else. That's the dramatic part of it, but there's definitely some dust embedded in there. One of the things about the DeWalt thickness planer, or generically these things are referred to as lunchbox planers. The DeWalt unit, I know in particular, has a pretty powerful fan inside that, left to its own devices, if you don't have any hose connected to the back of the thing at all, and it's unrestricted, it will blow a stream of chips out of there probably 30 feet. In my shop, what I used to do is roll the machine over there to the doorway where I had the yard in back, so I would mulch the backyard by by running stuff through this chipper. So we'll show a little bit about this machine in action. See, there's where we have taken and attached a large hose to that thing. We've added some bracketry to the tail end of the machine to support that hose and keep it out of the path of the material that we're trying to run through there. And we run that hose into that 1800 CFM dust collector.
Their dust collection that's built into a lot of the planers there is fantastic. You can take that thing, we run just hundreds of board foot through this sometimes, and barely have to sweep the floor when you have the dust collector connected to it. Because it's pretty well sealed unit, and it picks it up from underneath it, from the chippers itself, the blades, and it comes out there. By the time it's done, you barely have to wipe the thing off. It really does a great job.
One of the things that we noticed is you do have to watch the indicator on the dust collector, or monitor how full that thing is getting, because even with a 35-gallon barrel that Rob's got on his, you could fill that dude up in an afternoon, just real easy. Okay, I think the last machine that we have to show here is the drum sander. These things, I am here to tell you, generate some dust.
Very, very fine dust.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that hood works very well. Pulling a lot out.
Jack and his son came over to make ingrain cutting boards. Not just like over even the kitchen area inside the cabinet conditions with some of his stuff. I figured, why do we have so much stuff? And we figured out afterwards. If you don't tell it all, but you have a clock coming over there in a short amount of such a fine powder. You can actually see a stream, like a vortex of it going through on there, you know, because it is a higher volume that goes on there.
Okay, on the slide there, I mentioned that you will fill the room with a fine dust if you don't turn that dust collector on. You want to be cautious on machines like that, not to try to take off too much at one time. You'll wind up doing more damage than good. You'll wind up clogging up the sandpaper, and that will transfer onto the wood in the form of a burn. Okay, I was going to turn it over to Jim at this point to talk about this picture of a human hair and some of the particulates that are in there, and some of these this collection of dust masks that is up here.
I ran across this picture this week on the internet, and it was a pretty good indication of the sizes of particles that we deal with. For example, this is a human hair. This is a typical very fine beach sand piece, 90 microns. The human hair is about 50 to 70 microns in diameter. But the dust that we're dealing with in a wood shop are much smaller, less than 10 micrometers in diameter. You can stack several of those on the side of one human hair, you see. And then there are even smaller ones, less than 2.5 micrometers. Those are the very, very fine dust particles. Also organic compounds and metals, like in a metal shop or something like that. So let me take that as a basis to talk about these off-the-shelf dust masks. These are all disposable type masks. This is a typical surgical mask that you see from time to time. They're not much good at all. They don't really fit very tightly around the face. And as I said before, they're only good to filter out birds and elephants almost. The next step up is called an N95. N95 means that it will filter about 95% of the particles that it comes in contact with. And that's not too bad. This kind here, you breathe your exhale and inhale air is going through the mask completely. This is a little better one. I like this better because your exhale air goes out this valve. Okay. It goes out that valve, including the moisture-laden exhale air. So the mask doesn't get so moist on the inside.
Or clog your glasses up.
Clog your glasses up too, yeah. This is another type. I'm not sure what the particulate filtration rate is on this one, but this is a charcoal mask, and it's really good if you're doing spraying oil-based type paints or lacquers or something like that. It really removes the organics very nicely. If I'm spraying Deft lacquer on something for a long time, I'll almost certainly get a headache. But if I wear one of these, I won't get a headache when I deal with it. The best way to store these, though, is in a fairly airtight container like this, because if you just leave them sitting out in the shop 24/7, they continue to absorb stuff from the air. So put them in an airtight container when you're not using them, and they'll be fresh the next time you want to use them. This is a much better one here. I actually got this at a big box store. This is a P100 mask. That's equivalent to a HEPA filtration A HEPA filtration system, it means a high efficiency particle air, HEPA. That filters 99.95% of all particles greater than 0.3 microns in diameter. That's a very nice system, a filtration system. This is a P100. If you see a designation of an N, this is N95. This is a P100. N means that this is designed to use in a non-oil environment. If you're spraying oil of any kind, even if you're working with maybe an oil finish, then an N-type mask will not filter the oil very much out of the air. The P mask will. They're designed to actually remove the oil particles in the air that you're working with. So I recommend this kind much more than the N95s. So try to get the P100 or the N100. And the most dangerous particles, we've kind of mentioned this before, are the ones that are so small you can't see them.
Where do you buy them?
Okay. I bought this at one of the big box stores on the way, Home Depot on the way here. The rest of them were bought at either Home Depot or Lowe's. They also have them here. They have another brand of P100 mask here, which is just as good. By the way, this one also has, it has a P100 filter and it has a charcoal canister that comes with it too. So you can remove it down. This is $40. Also this one, since it does have a charcoal canister, get a large Tupperware container that's airtight, store it in that, because it will constantly absorb everything out of the air for a long time. And you can save the lifetime of it if you store it sealed.
They also have a good source of those masks at a large variety at Granger.
Yeah.
They're not inexpensive, but there's a lot of different sorts.
You can't find the N90, the N100 or P100 mask of this type at the big box stores, but you can order them on Amazon, and I've done that before. So you can get the N100 and the P100 in this kind of mask also, which is much better than the N95 actually. Just remember, the particles that you don't see are the ones that are causing long-term permanent damage to your lungs, especially if it's a wood that you're allergic to. You don't want that at all.
Yeah, a mask like the one that Jim's got there, that has the side mount filters. Those things are particularly friendly, especially when you're shooting lacquer or something like that. That's something I do fairly often, with the high VOC paints and products and so forth. And
Yeah.
those things there, you smell nothing when you're using those.
If you're spraying a paint with xylene or toluene, benzene, anything in that, you don't want to breathe that. Use a charcoal canister, get rid of that stuff. Don't take a chance. Because the aromatics like that will cause, are known to cause cancer. Don't play around with it.
Okay, I think that's about all we got for today. Thank you much for coming.